Welcome to Main Street Minds with your host, Amish Munshi. This is where industry leaders and seasoned pros share their secrets to success beyond limits. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to Main Street Minds. Today we have a very special guest, Abhishek Mukherji, with us, right here local around me near Fremont. And today we are very excited to have you on our channel and looking forward to learning everything about the entrepreneurship, the jobs, how do we approach our life in the tech industry. So without any further delay, I'll open up the floor and let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Amish. Thanks for having me on your show. Hi, everyone. I'm Abhishek Mukherji. I'm currently a field CTO of Generative AI Solutions at a startup called Scientific. And my background, particularly, is in AI and machine learning. So, very interestingly, I actually did a master's and a PhD in computer science, focused around data mining when it was a field. Now everything is called AI
Yeah.
or machine learning, but particularly data mining. And then actually progressed my career into like different industries. I mean, I actually started at Samsung R&D. This is a Silicon Valley lab right across the NASA airfield
Yeah,
in
it's a
Mountain View.
beautiful building.
It's
If
a nice,
anyone
like
around
two
here,
buildings and a nice, like golf course across. And we used to actually always wonder who are the people playing golf there. Maybe one day we'll do
yeah.
that. But overall, right, I would say I've actually, in my career, I've always thought of how can I make the technology useful for the people and the business processes. So, say for example, at Samsung, we were actually developing a context framework. So what exactly context framework means is everyone's still talking about your context, right? If an assistant could understand what we actually mean, right? There's a huge gap still, even with
Mm-hmm.
these new technologies like LLM and all this is still the agentic AI. There's still a huge gap in really understanding a person's context. So back
Yeah,
in like 2020, 2013, we were actually building technologies where AI would run on your phone, some data mining algorithms on your like sensor data as well as your phone data and all that
yeah.
securely inside your phone, not going into the cloud. So this
Mm-hmm.
was 2013. And something very similar to Siri suggestions, but very context aware. So,
Yeah,
if, for example, you're traveling, so you will actually get Google Maps or Uber. If you are at home, you'll get separate set of apps as suggestions. If you are in office or some
yeah.
like mall or other places, you'll
Mm-hmm.
based on the context, it would actually learn. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, this was a really interesting work that I started my career with. And
Yeah.
then on, I actually worked on a variety of use cases around like indoor location at Cisco. So use cases like if you're dwelling around a children's play area, then some Toys R Us kind of a coupon will pop up, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Very practical applications of AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
And work for a variety of like big box stores, airports, malls, and even like Singapore MRT to solve a lot of like the commuter analytics work at
Mm-hmm.
Cisco. At Accenture, I actually pivoted back to, I would say, NLP and computer vision.
Mm-hmm.
Actually worked, the first work was actually some kind of an email automation for a collections process. So what it means
Mm-hmm.
is when you subscribe to, say, for example, any Azure services, and across the globe, people are subscribing to these services, there's a collections team, and it's not basically focused on getting that money, that like the subscription money to the company,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So this is the collections process, and through email, how we can automate like the different types of emails coming in, and which department should it be forwarded to, how do disputes get uh,
Mm-hmm.
computed, and so on, right? And also variety of use cases around like call center analytics for an energy company. They were getting a lot of I would say complaints. So even going out to the social media and what are people talking about, that particular energy company,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. And then in 22, this Gen AI boom hit. So very interestingly, I was actually at the heart of it at Accenture, where we formed a generative AI center of excellence, and I was part of that core team under the chief AI officer there, where we actually worked on really forming the architecture of how generative AI and the different components should actually work together,
Mm-hmm.
all the way from like there were concepts like prompt engineering all the way to responsible AI. And
Yeah.
I actually even led the team that actually built the responsible AI offering at Accenture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, coming back to scientific, so one thing that I learned at Accenture was a lot of like the business side of it, right? I was talking to customers, I was actually helping a lot of our teams to formulate their AI into actually solving the business
Mm-hmm.
problems. Now at Scientific, I'm actually even taking that further where I am actually part of a pre-sales and solutions team.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we talk to, and particularly for foundational AI companies, we're talking to a lot of these foundational AI companies and their data needs. So if we actually look around, they're consuming digital data at a massive scale, right? But what is happening is there's a Epic AI survey which basically tells you that by 2026 to 32, all of the digital data will be consumed by these LLMs,
Yeah.
but still they will be dumb in all
Yeah.
honesty, right?
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is these companies are dedicatedly asking for task specific data to be curated by humans in
Mm-hmm.
variety of languages. And also we know that the LLMs are good, okay, kind of in English, but as you progress towards the secondary languages or underrepresented languages, their representation is fairly poor,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
what I am doing at Scientific is basically with a team of like the FTs plus the crowd, we have an annotation platform where these task specific data gets collected
Mm-hmm.
and then shipped to these LLM companies. So one example is like a shopping assistant. They
Mm-hmm.
want like in maybe 20 languages how shoppers are going to interact with the shopping assistant, and that gets
Okay.
fed into
And is
a
it
shopping assistant.
is it mainly based with differences are mainly based on language, or is it also like aspect of cultures that also weaves into it?
Absolutely. So it is culture. And say, for example, I mean, if we are doing it for a company like Amazon.com, right? So we know that certain products are available only in certain regions or countries,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even there are like state-wise kind of regulations of what can be sold in state of California
Yeah. Oh
versus
yeah.
another state.
Yeah.
So all of that comes into play, and it has to be so essentially, right? Some people may think that we can actually nowadays use LLMs to generate data. Yes, synthetic data can be generated, but
Yeah.
what is required is that non-hallucination, real human curated data to
Mm-hmm.
actually, and because all these, we also hear this term garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
So if data is not very good,
Yeah.
models are not going to be very good either,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that is now the focus because at Accenture, I actually built a lot of applications using these LLMs. And as we were progressing from GPT-2 to 3.5 Turbo to 4 to 4.0,
Mm-hmm.
I saw that these LLMs were not ready actually for
Yeah.
those solutions.
Yeah.
Right? So interestingly, I thought that then I should go back two behind in the pipeline to basically curate good data such that
Mm-hmm.
we first create good language models, which will
Yeah.
then be easy to utilize in any kind of businesses.
Yeah. So
So that's
just
overall background
yeah,
actually.
that's really amazing, and the experience you bring is just invaluable. So, for the common person to understand what does this mean, what like let's say if somebody wants to try out something like this, what do they really need? Like, do they need like a supercomputer? Do they need like the most expensive NVIDIA chip? Do they need like this uh, terabytes of data? Like, what is the reality today? Like, what do they need for a normal? Let's say if it's a mid-size or a reasonable mid-sized business, right? Like a few thousand employees, they have some data, they are running things. what like, and if they are not doing anything with AI and they have some data, they're like, I wish we could do something, but is it even possible, or do I need that $20 million Nvidia chip?
So the interesting thing is that the advances in AI to drive business process has been like at least 15-year old, right?
Yeah,
But suddenly with LLMs, it has become like more commoditized, right?
yeah,
So I would say that a medium size, so only the Mag 7s or like the companies with large compute and a lot of money to spend on compute
yeah.
typically end up like doing a lot of the deep fine tuning,
Mm-hmm.
GPU based improvement. But I
Yeah,
mean, whatever I'm saying can actually vanish in the next one year. But I'm just telling it
yeah,
now, right? Because of the how it is how expensive it is right now,
yeah.
right? So and how much time it'll take, and still you have to keep fine tuning stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say for any kind of a medium or even a small scale business which has a lot of data, they should actually think of um, buy versus build. So essentially, they should buy
Sure.
existing technologies, and then
Mm-hmm.
how we are progressing in this field is the very first thing is use the LLMs as is, and
Mm-hmm.
the first step would be like prompt engineering, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a lot of prompts, and even in prompt engineering there's like something called zero shot, which is directly asking the question, right?
Yeah.
Maybe within the knowledge that it has, it's able to answer your question. The
Mm-hmm.
second step would be, okay, at times it gets a little more complex,
Mm-hmm.
and it may not be able to answer your questions unless it has the exact data context. So
Mm-hmm.
that is where we bring in like some few shot learning all the way to a RAG solution, which is a retrieval augmented generation.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, what it means is you are passing LLM the relevant chunk. So think
Mm-hmm.
of LLM as something that only knows the language and it has learned something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you are pointing it to this specific data on your business
Mm-hmm.
to actually answer the question, right? So
Yeah.
you go to that level, and then essentially, and more, what I've seen is about 70 to 80% problems in like small scale or medium scale businesses can actually be solved with this
Mm-hmm.
approach, because the LLMs are getting more and more mature,
Okay.
and you can actually pass it the specific data through a few shot learning or RAG
Mm-hmm.
solution,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you are really in a complex scenario, and I'll tell you the scenarios, like say for example, if you're trying to do like a financial
Mm-hmm.
analysis, right? And very specific to your company or your, I mean, I actually saw use cases in energy industry where they're trying to oil and gas industry where they're trying to actually build models which would tell them how to optimally drill a oil well or something
Yeah.
like that. This is
Yeah.
an extreme case,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
cannot rely on an LLM to tell you, and
Yeah.
actually a lot of geophysics kind of knowledge goes into it.
Yeah.
And the same, I mean, applies to like, say, for example, medicine, field of medicine,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, we used to Google a lot. Now we ask ChatGPT a lot of questions. I
Yeah.
absolutely understand that sometimes those questions may sound very, answers may sound very convincing to you. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
there's a lot of like, and if you try it out, right? I mean, we actually did an experiment recently where we asked for some top five companies on this, on some
Mm-hmm.
topic, and it gave us a list, and we said, oh, why not this company? So
Mm-hmm.
then it started thinking and saying, and eventually after
Hmm.
like five, six iterations, it actually, we convinced the LLM
Yeah.
or ChatGPT
Yeah.
that yes, this is actually the top company for this
Yeah.
technology, whereas
Yeah.
it was not. So, I mean, essentially, it's like we are in a very interesting phase where people think that, oh, I mean, ChatGPT knows everything, or all
Yeah.
the LLMs know everything. Not
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
I would say.
So tell us a little bit more about that. Like, I'm always very curious to know, like, at what stage does that thread of ChatGPT, the member, thinks about me versus making it part of its own knowledge base and information, and like apply it to more people. So, uh, like, what is the reality? Like, is my information still pretty safe within that one thread, or does
That's a
that?
great question. So it is company by company, and I mean, whatever I'm saying may actually get controversial, but I would say because what I've done is that I've gone and talked to these companies as a
Hmm.
customer
Yeah.
who is also dealing with our customer data.
Yeah.
I mean, in my past work at Accenture, I've actually
Hmm.
talked to Azure, Google, as well as AWS.
Hmm.
And this is a very, very important question, right? Because otherwise, you will always have to use a locally hosted language model. And the
Yeah.
locally hosted language models, for example, Mistral uh,
Hmm.
or Llama, right?
Yeah.
They are still lagging behind a little bit
Hmm.
compared to the OpenAI GPT-4o and the latest models and even the vision
Yeah.
models.
Hmm.
Gemini is actually picking up really well, right?
Hmm.
But to answer your specific question, they have specifically said that there's this concept of escrow servers.
Hmm.
What it means is, say, for example, Azure is hosting the GPT-4o model, right?
Hmm.
So there are two concepts that they tell about this escrow server. One is that they open it up for OpenAI to deploy their model.
Hmm.
And then once everything is there, of course, they're collecting whatever analytics to improve the model or whatever, right? But
Hmm.
neither Azure nor OpenAI have access to that server to retrieve data from that server.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that is the concept of escrow
So
server. The
kind of
second
like
thing that
containerized
it's
version
a
of.
containerized version. And the second thing that they told me is that when you have your data in, of course, you must be passing your data from some Azure instance, say, for example,
Yeah.
or a S3 bucket. So it always tries to find the implementation in your region.
Hmm.
So what it means is that data does not even cross regions to, like, say, for example, the West Coast and
Interesting.
East Coast installation,
Yeah. Yeah.
OpenAI, right? They would try to actually get you to your region's installation. So your data is actually pretty secure. And
Okay.
nowadays they have very big disclaimer around not using any of the customer data.
Okay.
So, and I'll tell you one more thing, right? Before this, we were using the language services.
Yeah.
We were using all the, let's say, for example, the transcribe AWS service or a comprehend service are these services where you do NLP and machine learning
Hmm.
with, right? And a lot of different services.
Hmm.
Sending data to these LLMs is equivalent to using these services. Before we were blindly saying, okay, they will not use our data, but we were sending it our audio to be transcribed
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
transcript.
Yeah.
And then to do any kind of analytics, we were using, say, for example, AWS Comprehend,
Yeah.
right? This predates LLMs. Now,
Yeah.
suddenly, why would LLMs be? I mean, it all depends on be more unsafe, right? Is what
Yeah.
you're saying,
Yeah,
right?
and it's like everything that's happening with Gen AI. I think we are reliving all our moments, right? Saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
Google is why is Google giving us so much storage on our Gmail going back 20 25 years ago, right? We should be questioning some of these things, saying, why is ChatGPT free? What is the difference between the free and the paid? How do they work with a business to business model versus a business to consumer model? What are they doing at Perplexity versus ChatGPT versus Gemini? Like what and like what is it? What are all of them doing, right? And selecting whom we work with, it could have big consequences in the longer run.
See, that is absolutely right. But I feel that with all the worldly governance and all that, I think, and that's where responsible AI actually is a very important aspect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when, like, imagine like in 2013 when I was talking about the smart Samsung smartphones, right?
Yeah.
We were actually not connecting to the cloud. We were actually running those algorithms, and that's why I
Locally.
was actually hired to create lightweight algorithms, data
Yeah.
mining algorithms that would run on your phone, although when it is charging it at night, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most of these mobile companies, right, or any kind of watch company, when you implement algorithms for them, their criteria is accuracy, efficiency, and duration, right? But their main criteria to get into these phones is the battery consumption.
Yeah.
They would actually want you to show them that your algorithm takes up to a certain threshold of battery usage,
Yeah.
and then only they would actually put it in production
Yeah.
into their phones and all that. So I just want to say that, I mean, definitely, but still, if some people are really paranoid about something like this, of course there are options where you can actually download from Hugging Face is a really nice place where people download models
Mm-hmm.
from, and nowadays Nvidia has this NIMS option
Mm-hmm.
where it's a containerized solution. You just basically get it, and you can actually deploy on your own VM, and you can actually
Nice.
run all the things. But I would still say that and this can actually be wrong, incorrect in the next 2 weeks or
Yeah.
2 months, who knows?
I
But
know the
I would
life
say right
moves
now,
so
still the
fast in
OpenAI, I
yeah.
would say has very good models. Claude has very good. Cohere has like some very interesting uh, ranking, re-ranking kind of concepts
Mm-hmm.
that they have come up with, and
Mm-hmm.
so these are like definitely pioneers.
Yeah.
And of course, something like Amazon, they're coming up with these Nova models which are
Mm-hmm.
picking up really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Makes sense. Cool. So tell me a little bit more about Centrific. Like, do you provide services to customers or are you providing full solutions as a product?
that's a great question. So Scientific, we are actually pivoting as a product company now.
Okay.
What we have is called a AI and Data Foundry product.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is all the way from like the data processing and curation with human labelers
Mm-hmm.
to using that data to fine tune and improve LLMs, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the way to building applications on RAG and chatbots, and then also operationalizing basically the LLM ops aspect.
Yeah.
So we are building a complete suite of these product
Okay.
line, and even like agentic AI, how
Mm-hmm.
to bring in agentic AI, how do you bring in red teaming
Mm-hmm.
as a solution. So everything, because so now Scientific goes back, actually it's interestingly it's a startup, but it's a 4,000 person startup.
Yeah.
4,000 person FT,
Wow.
and we have a 1.8 million crowd actually
Yeah.
worldwide. And
Okay.
what we do is initially we started off as a language localization company
Okay.
in the 2000s,
Okay.
and we've actually now transformed that into generative AI company, because Scientific worked very closely with Microsoft, and
Mm-hmm.
essentially we actually helped with engineering and data. We
Mm-hmm.
helped Microsoft in their pursuit for building their Copilot. So the
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft Copilot. So and interestingly, our headquarters is actually surrounded by our Microsoft buildings in Redmond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then basically my division is more focused on the foundational AI aspect. So
Mm-hmm.
we definitely know that with this crowd, right, as our human power
Mm-hmm.
and an annotation platform. So the first aspect of it is the product is the annotation platform, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, what we do there is, as we get like these guidelines, say for example, shopping assistant, somebody wants to build a shopping assistant, or somebody wants
Mm-hmm.
to build, wants to understand like PIIs as a LLM, right?
Yeah.
One interesting problem that we recently solved and provided huge amount of data for
Mm-hmm.
was this PII guardrails
Mm-hmm.
in tier two underrepresented languages. So there were
Mm-hmm.
languages like Arabic, I would say Vietnamese,
Yeah.
Norwegian,
Mm-hmm.
Flemish, all these languages, right? Imagine, of course, you can interact with these LLMs in English, but say, for example, if you give it like say, for example, a passport number or a driver's license, you accidentally provide it.
Mm-hmm.
For from Vietnam, or driver's
Yeah.
license or a
Yeah.
SSN ID from Vietnam or some other place, right? I mean, Belgium, it may actually not be able to detect it, and it may actually process it
Mm-hmm.
as if it was not a PII, right?
Mm-hmm. You're
So
right.
we had actually we provided about 50,000 such data points, like
Mm-hmm.
essentially prompts, and labeled them with many PIIs that were composed into those data.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this then feeds into improving the LLM's understanding of these underrepresented languages,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is kind of one work that we are
Yeah.
really focused on. So I focus really on the annotation platform, and even from each of and we get to see like what across the different teams in a company,
Mm-hmm.
plus different companies are trying to do with um, to build these LLMs, or to build these shopping assistants, or to build these chatbots or RAG solutions. What are they trying to do
Yeah.
across the board, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, if you are part of one of these groups, you're only focused on that. So what
Mm-hmm.
I like about my job is I get to actually experience and try to solve for each of these different verticals.
Yeah.
One interesting thought leadership that I'm trying to actually build is with the quality of data, right? Because the when you are doing human curation, there is bound to be errors in the data, right?
Mm-hmm.
But error is not bad all the time, because say for example, we want to know with different levels of errors or the quality of data,
Mm-hmm.
how will the fine tune once you fine tune the LLM, or once
Mm-hmm.
you build a RAG solution,
Mm-hmm.
what would how the impact would be on the accuracies. This is
Mm-hmm.
a very interesting aspect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So interestingly, there is a company called Datalogy AI,
Mm-hmm.
which secured like some very good funding only based on this topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very interesting topic for like across like all LLM companies, even people who are enterprises who are trying to utilize LLMs to
Mm-hmm.
build or fine tune something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
building a thought leadership around like different aspects, even like one experiment we did recently was, uh, about these subscriptions, right? There are some rate limits in the
Mm-hmm.
subscriptions, and they get exhausted very quickly as you scale. If you put this in production, right? Say for example, a OpenAI GPT-4o model, you are
Yeah.
subscribing to it, and you put in a production as soon as like about 300 people are concurrently using it,
Yeah.
you will actually see a
Yeah.
loss of service.
Yeah.
And this is because of per minute token limit that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's more like we have this thing in India, right? That we say that elephants have like a different tusk, like हाथी के दांत दिखाने के
Yeah.
कुछ और होते हैं और
Yeah.
खाने के कुछ और होते हैं. So
Yeah.
basically, so then to put in production, you have to actually subscribe to a PTU, which is called Provision Throughput Unit.
Mm-hmm.
So the LLM companies would actually first give you these subscriptions to try out. But
Mm-hmm.
when you put in production, and especially if you're scaling to
Mm-hmm.
thousands of users on your website,
Yeah.
which is in the back end, it's using
Mm-hmm.
some LLM subscription. You
Mm-hmm.
have to move to these provision throughput unit, and they've
Yeah.
even given you calculations. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you want these many concurrent users with this much compute, this many tokens, you need to utilize this level of PTU.
Yeah.
And it actually goes from about 50,000 to 150,000
Mm-hmm.
to even higher if you are really creating a scaled website.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a catch that if you've not put things in production, nobody
Mm-hmm.
would even know, right?
Yeah.
And recently I was actually at a chief data officers conference where I actually explained a lot of the hidden challenges. One of them
Mm-hmm.
was this, that
Mm-hmm.
and we actually even experimented with like, what if we use like three subscriptions, five subscriptions, and we keep
Mm-hmm.
switching as we meet the closer to the threshold, we keep switching, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that would, I mean, this was like a, I would say, poor man's version of a
Yeah.
like getting things done without paying, I would say, 50,000 per month
Mm-hmm.
kind of a subscription.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about like what is an ideal customer for Centrific? Like, is it mostly like these very large companies, or like whom do you generally work with within your department?
So definitely my department is more focused on the foundational AI, right?
Okay.
So all of the companies who are building LLMs or like I would say again the Amazon, the Apple,
Yep.
and all these companies, Google, Meta, and
Yep.
so on, right? But we also work with a lot of e-commerce companies,
Okay.
like Walmart, Home Depot, and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are leveraging these technologies to build their own like say for example, you can actually find this magic apron, which is
Mm-hmm.
an equivalent of a Rufus shopping
Mm-hmm.
assistant in Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the magic apron is essentially Home Depot's chatbot that they've
Mm-hmm.
put on their Home Depot website already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we actually help them with that.
Okay.
We There are other companies, so we are mostly like looking at like even medium kind of businesses,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to large businesses, enterprise, e-commerce, and
Mm-hmm.
then foundational AI. And particularly
Mm-hmm.
my group only focuses on foundational AI because
Okay.
there's a huge amount of work ongoing
Mm-hmm.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. So yeah, that definitely helps like to have the right people reaching out to you, right? Like instead of like just random people reaching out.
that's right.
So yeah, so coming to like where we are today, like what are some of the new things that you think are coming up? I know AI is growing just way faster than what anybody is able to even absorb, or I think we'll need an AI to like keep up with an AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like what are some of the new things that you are seeing? I know like you're right in the middle of it, so you will be seeing so many things that it might, some of them might look a little more repetitive, but for the audience, everything might be new. So tell us a little bit about things that you are
So,
seeing right now.
yeah, thanks. This is a great question and very relevant. So, until 2024, right, all of this generative AI was in the process of like understanding what generative AI can do, right?
Yeah.
And we've definitely one of the limitations I told you is that the subscriptions do not scale and so on, right? But in 25 onwards, there's a huge shift. One of them is something called this trillion parameter model. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, right, these companies are even trying to scale their algorithms or LLM
Mm-hmm.
fine tuning and inference to the GPU level. I mean, this
Mm-hmm.
was ongoing for before as well, but there are
Mm-hmm.
like these concepts of different types of parallelism, data
Mm-hmm.
parallelism, or and so on, right? So that the trillion parameter model is one interesting trend, right?
Yeah.
So the other trend is basically reasoning. So being able to do math or even at like a research level
Mm-hmm.
kind of a work and really reasoning, right? Instead of just so I mean, if you actually go back to the basics of LLMs, right? It's something that it's more like a rote learner, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, right? If you give it something, it's the
Yeah.
premise or the basis of this is it completes a sentence,
Right.
right? So it'll actually look at its corpus and it'll fit what is the next word or the next phrase that I can
Mhm.
do to complete your sentence. And that I've
Yeah.
extended into, okay, write me a resume on this, or write me a job description. Or
Mm-hmm.
so all of these things there it's good at. But if you
Mm-hmm.
ask it a like a math question, say for example, even at like a I would say like an algebra question or something like that. It won't be able to do it. And then this is the trend here is that these companies and that extends to coding as well. These companies are actually hiring people who would have coding knowledge, who would have, I mean, at least like the postgraduate and PhD level knowledge of chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
biotechnology, and all this, right? Such that all of that level of knowledge gets fed into the LLM.
Mm-hmm.
So reasoning is the other one. The third is multimodal, actually. So
Mm-hmm.
if you see, LLMs are mostly text data, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you see a huge improvement with Gemini as well as even these Nova Sonic and other models that are coming in, which are focusing on audio, which are
Mm-hmm.
focusing on images and video, right? If you actually saw a very famous, this thing was Will Smith eating spaghetti or something.
Mm-hmm.
This was, and it was so bad. Like, I mean, you could actually tell that it is generated. So essentially, we are in the vision of this thing, right? We are moving towards more realistic generated images and
Mm-hmm.
videos. What
Mm-hmm.
it will mean is that we will not be able to distinguish
Yeah.
whether it is real or it is LLM or VLM
Yeah.
generated, right?
Yeah. What are
And
some
there are
of,
a lot of like good companies that are coming up in this.
yeah.
So I would say these are like the major three trends. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit excited to dive a little deeper into that. You do mention like it's going to be very difficult for a person to identify what's real versus what is not real.
Yeah.
Is there any pattern or is there something that a computer algorithm can identify? Like as an example, like YouTube
Absolutely.
itself, right? Saying you have to check a box saying this is AI generated content. But behind the scenes, I'm sure they do verify a few things. Do you see some patterns or something within the output that says no, this is definitely AI generated?
So definitely the computers can actually understand it. I'll just tell you how we are. There is this a whole concept of GAN models,
Mm-hmm.
generative adversarial network. So what
Mm-hmm.
it does is, and how they're trying to achieve this realism is
Mm-hmm.
that these models generate something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a adversarial network, which
Mm-hmm.
basically tries to do exactly what you said, which is
Mm-hmm.
distinguish, and if it is given like a real image and a fake image, or it's
Yeah.
able to distinguish, right? And then currently what they're doing is they're using this feedback to
Mm-hmm.
even go to that model which is generating the
Yeah.
image to make it more and more real, and
Okay.
basically improve the
Yeah.
realism of that. So
Yeah.
these are called GAN models. A huge amount of research goes around this, right? But at the same time, I would also say that at the computer level, definitely, right? I mean, at algorithm level, you can
Mm-hmm.
actually distinguish.
Okay.
Although humans may not be able to distinguish,
Yeah.
there are definitely some watermarks or some ways you can
Right.
actually distinguish programmatically
Okay.
that these are real versus fake.
Right.
So that is definitely possible.
Makes sense. Okay, yeah, hopefully that I know like I used to work in security, so it was always a catch-22 game, right? Game makes it a little more difficult, and the people that want to break the security like step a little bit ahead. Like it's I think it will be something along those lines. Like there won't ever be an end on figuring out like uh, the difference over here.
Absolutely. I mean, the concept that you're saying is this red teaming and purple teaming, right?
Yeah.
Because basically, two teams, one tries to catch issues and the other actually tries to improve on like
Yeah.
fraud such
Yeah.
that it's you're not able to catch it. The same concept is basically being applied here in
Yeah.
the, I mean, the math is slightly different, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially the concept is the same. That one
Yeah.
tries to improve and the other tries to catch it,
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, as we come close to the end of this episode, there's still so many questions I want to ask about, like the career options and some of these, but I think we might be running out of time a little bit. But this was extremely useful. But just before we kind of conclude, what are some of your departing thoughts? Feel free to take your time
Yeah,
on.
so Amish, thanks so much for inviting me on your talk. One
Yeah,
interesting thing that I would say is that there are several new career options that are coming up,
yeah,
right? And I also talk about it in one of my blogs as well as my talk that I gave at the CDO. So emerging careers with
mm-hmm.
AI, right? So earlier there was like all like machine learning engineer and I would say data engineer,
Yeah,
and these are traditional. Now there are these language engineers, or even like something to do with like prompt engineering, and something to
mm-hmm.
do with particularly like the operations of
Mm-hmm.
the ML algorithm. So I actually highly encourage the next generation to actually really I would say skill up on these newer emerging career
Mm-hmm.
paths, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's either the traditional companies are going to upskill or they're going to get obsolete, right? So
Yeah.
it's and we hear a lot about, I would say, these layoffs and all that. So one point I want to make is that definitely this is very premature. So
Right.
relying on AI to even write production level code,
Yeah.
I would say is very, very premature. And I'm saying this because I've done several experimentations, several
Yeah.
POCs, several projects for like internally for my company as well as customers, and we are still
Yeah.
improving, right? So I've seen these layoffs in these big tech and companies and so on. It actually changes the entire like mindset of people, whether they really want to work for these companies or not, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and there is definitely a push towards like doing your own startup and all that, right? One thing that I want to actually also mention is people should do a startup if they know the why, right? And they really believe in the why, not because it is a trend, not
Mm-hmm.
because it is going to get them huge amount of money. Because
Mm-hmm.
exactly as you said before, like we were discussing, it is doing a startup is not fun. It's a
Yeah.
lot of hard work. It's like taking away from your family time. It's
Yeah.
taking away from a lot of your individual, like
Mm-hmm.
even health goals and so on, right?
Yeah.
So you have to really immerse yourself. And it's not that some VC is going to come and like fund you. And when the VCs come and
Yeah.
fund you, they're actually
It's late.
going to sell you in like 5 years
Yeah.
for like 10x. That's
Yeah.
what their goal is. They don't care about the technology. So if
Mm-hmm.
you really care about that particular problem to solve or the technology, that's when you should actually jump into doing a startup, and not
Yeah.
because, oh, I mean, we'll get some VC funding, we'll chill out, we'll
Yeah.
have like a dorm room kind of a situation where
Yeah.
it's not fun.
And
It's a lot of
and
dedication.
life happens, right? Like right when you're doing all of this, life happens. You might be getting married, you might end up having kids, you
Exactly.
might like other things might like it might be there's probably a year or two between college and between like I'm stereotyping and making things a little too theoretical, but like the reality is like stuff happens in life. uh, 10 years 15 years is not a it's a short time, but it's also a long time, and there's just so much that ends up happening. One of the things you did mention is in 2013 when you were doing mobile based processing of things. I think that's in use only now, right? Like it was being used that time, but the reality of feeling all of that and the importance of doing all that, I think it just took 10 years to come
Yes,
into
that is
existence.
another very interesting aspect, but it's getting short-circuited for sure, right? With
Yeah,
these LLMs and all that. But
yeah,
you're absolutely right. Now we see these Siri suggestions or some Bixby recommendation and all that,
yeah,
right? But this technology actually we were developing 10 years ago. I'll tell
yeah,
you one more thing, like you
sure,
use this Google app, Google Maps and Waze, right? Where
yeah,
it actually, if there is an accident or a cop ahead of you, it
yeah,
actually asks you.
yeah.
So interestingly, I have a patent on this thing, how
Oh,
you
nice.
gather evidence from multiple sources, like different
Yeah,
people moving and you don't see the cop, right? I mean, and you don't see if you are stuck in a traffic, you don't know if it is because is there an accident or some other thing that happened ahead of you, and it asks you this question. So basically, this was like a work and patent that I filed while I was at Samsung in 2014.
hmm,
And now I feel really proud. Like, so mainly my purpose of my life I've made is to really solve like useful problems. It should
yeah,
not be like, oh, I'm talking about LLMs, oh, I'm talking about like GPUs
yeah.
and
The imp,
like
yeah,
if that technology can make an impact is what
yeah,
I think is like
yeah,
really helpful. Because
yeah,
I actually come from a very deep like a database group
yeah,
from my advisor, right? PhD advisor. So she was actually one of the seminal people who wrote work on materialized views. If you,
hmm,
it's a very old concept in SQL and
yeah,
databases, right?
yeah,
And it was a very core database kind of work and whatever I did. But then I thought I should make things more practical and useful. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why like I've tried to always solve like real world problems with AI, and
Yeah.
not be tied into these jargons.
Yeah.
It's just a tool or a means to actually solve those real world problems.
Yeah.
What should be? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing how like a lot of people like think saying the ability to like take AI and being implementing it to the use is all on the agentic side, right? People always think like that is where the application of AI comes into perspective, but you bring a very unique perspective saying, hey, we could be developing AI itself, implementing the core of the technology in a way that it can become more applicable to specific use cases.
Absolutely. So, I mean, while you bring up agentic, right? Early days of agentic were really tough.
Yeah,
I mean, see, the concept here is the LLMs, you have to tell a lot of context to actually get it to work the way you want it. Now, with
yeah,
agents, you're actually just supplying an intent.
yeah,
Hey, can you book me a ticket to India?
yeah.
Right? It's going to automatically figure out what is required to do that. It'll ask
Mm-hmm.
you questions. It is going to, I mean, how many people are going? What
Yeah,
all different? Do you have seat preferences? Do you have?
yeah,
So really, and this is like a context, your context, right? So
yeah.
essentially, I would say again, decades of work has gone in to
Yeah.
understand a human
Oh, yeah.
context, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the agentic is more to do with like again, if we talk about like an assistant, your own agent, right? It's going to understand, it's going to actually, I mean, maybe the next time we meet, it will, your agent will talk to my agent and figure out this is the right time
Yeah.
to have the next conversation with these
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
right? The agents are going to figure out, okay, even set up like coffee, or like lunch, right? And
Yeah.
also book tickets for you
Yeah.
for a vacation or like some business.
Yeah, it's like having your own individual personal HR department saying, be
Exactly.
careful on whom you are hiring as your agent because that agent's negotiating power is going to be important and could have real life impact on whether you travel comfortably or you're going
Absolutely.
through a difficult
And
travel.
yeah, and this is at the personal level, but imagine at business level, right? Understanding the business process, the context,
Yeah.
even like a small thing like I actually implemented for the CIO, like Accenture CIO, this
Hmm.
HR reinvention. So we used to call it, no longer call it transformation. We used to call it reinvention. What
Yeah.
it means is an entire new way of doing something, right? It's not like we are just taking each step in the process and changing it.
Hmm.
We actually created a feedback because imagine like 700,000 people in a company like Accenture. There are about 300,000 plus managers,
Hmm.
and they would give feedback 2 times a year. They will give
Yeah.
feedback.
Yeah.
So we actually created a. So these are like low hanging fruit use cases. We
Yeah.
created a solution within Workday
Hmm.
such that they could give only some bullet points, and it will compose it into the Accenture's well better next kind of a
Yeah.
format as a paragraphs, 3 paragraphs of your feedback for you, right? So
Yeah.
imagine, and this saved a lot of time for people because imagine the composing, and then it to also took care of like cultural nuances, like things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it gets to business agents, it actually becomes even more complex,
Right.
right? If
Yeah.
if you if you slice down each process,
Hmm.
even the small process of giving feedback, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this was a very interesting conversation, and there's still like so many aspects that I want to cover. Maybe we can do one more episode and like go over a few more
Absolutely happy to.
things. Yeah. So, but thanks for coming on the show and sharing your valuable time and all the insights that we have learned from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Amish.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Thanks. Thank
Bye.
you.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Main Street Minds. Want to share your journey with our audience? Head over to mainstreetmindspodcast.com/guest to apply.